In Johannesburg, a normal morning turned into a nightmare for thousands of investors. When they checked their accounts, they received shocking notifications. Their cryptocurrency platform, Africrypt, a symbol of South African fintech, announced a large-scale cyber attack. As a result of this hack, all user assets disappeared without a trace. 69,000 bitcoins, an amount equivalent to nearly $4 billion, were missing. With each passing minute, the panic grew. However, the company's founders, 20-year-old Rais Kajee and his 17-year-old brother Amir, sent their customers an unusual, almost mockingly calm letter. In it, they urged them not to contact law enforcement or lawyers under any circumstances. Legal action, the brothers argued, would only hinder the fragile process of returning funds and intimidate the hackers. Meanwhile, the defrauded investors were still unaware of the most important thing. At the moment when they were struggling to read these lines, suppressing their fear, the Kajee brothers were already thousands of kilometers away from South Africa. But how did two teenagers manage to pull off one of the most grandiose and daring robberies in the history of cryptocurrencies? To understand how this happened, we need to go back 2 years, to 2019. At that time, South Africa was experiencing a crypto boom, a gold rush, when Johannesburg began to flourish. The story begins with two young men full of ambition. Rais Kajee was 20 years old and his younger brother Amir was 17. Having grown up in the digital space, they considered themselves geniuses capable of turning the world upside down. Together, they founded Africrypt, positioning it not as a regular exchange, but as a truly revolutionary platform. Their main argument was that the platform used advanced artificial intelligence with a self-learning function for automated Bitcoin trading. Their glossy website featured a carefully crafted legend that Rais had founded the business in 2013, when he was only 13 years old, in a modest room. His younger brother Amir, who was 17 at the time, already held the position of Chief Operating Officer and, according to his biography, was a true trading veteran with many years of experience. The brothers promised investors a return of 10% per day, not per year, but per day. It was an incredible, mathematically unfounded offer that seemed like an obvious scam, but for some inexplicable reason, people believed them. The brothers' offers sounded incredible. According to their simple calculations, an investment of $100 would turn into $1 million in 100 days. This idea, fueled by a universal thirst for easy money, instantly attracted enormous interest from wealthy investors across South Africa. Cryptocurrency was rapidly becoming the main investment tool, and no one wanted to miss this opportunity. The country was then experiencing economic stagnation, and traditional markets could not offer anything promising. People desperately needed salvation, and the Kajee brothers offered them just that. In reality, it was a classic pyramid scheme, cleverly disguised as a trendy and, for most people, incomprehensible crypto wrapper. Of course, there was no artificial intelligence. There was no real trading either. The money from new participants simply went to pay interest to those who had joined the scheme earlier. The Kajee brothers used aggressive marketing techniques to promote their scam, artificially creating hype and actively playing on emotions, exploiting the main fear of modern investors, fear of missing out, FOMO. Timely payments to early investors created a powerful illusion of success, which attracted more and more investments. Initial investors, receiving a guaranteed 10% per day, immediately shared this with their friends, relatives, and colleagues. A financial paradise seemed to have been found, and people who believed in it threw themselves into it headlong. They built houses, took out loans, emptied their pension accounts. The network grew exponentially. In order for this pyramid to really take off, the Kajee brothers needed more than just small investments. They needed large investors, people with authority and fame. To give their scam weight and authority, the brothers decided to take advantage of the popularity of celebrities. They knew very well that people tend to believe influential personalities more than facts and figures. The well-known South African rapper Nasty C took part in promoting Africrypt, convincing his millions of fans not to miss out on what he claimed was the most significant investment opportunity in history. His opinion was perceived as authoritative. Soon, news emerged that legendary footballer Benny McCarthy, whose fortune was estimated at $16 million, had also invested part of his funds in this promising startup. An active marketing campaign fueled rumors about the involvement of Hollywood celebrities such as Charlize Theron, as well as high-ranking representatives of the ruling African National Congress Party. There was talk that politicians saw this platform as the basis for an independent financial system for the country. As a result of the media hype, Africrypt became a real sensation. The platform went beyond a conventional investment and became a symbol for many, a symbol of the new Africa, demonstrating technological breakthroughs and proving that their country is capable of competing with Western powers. This turned the impending disappointment not only into a financial loss, but also into the collapse of national hopes. The Kajee brothers instantly became stars, new icons of the fintech world. Their lives turned into a spectacle of unbridled luxury. They didn't just buy expensive cars, they collected them. Lamborghini Aventadors, Rolls-Royce Ghosts, the latest Ferrari models. Elite parties attended by the most famous guests became a regular occurrence, and the brothers proudly posed for the covers of leading financial magazines, sharing their visions of the future of the economy. These parties also served as a marketing tool. By inviting the elite, the brothers were showing, "We belong to your circle. We have achieved success. We can be trusted." Behind this dazzling facade, which blinded investors, lay a surprisingly simple scheme. Clients' funds went directly to cryptocurrency wallets, completely and solely controlled by the brothers. However, the brothers understood that in order to maintain the illusion they had created, they needed to constantly raise the stakes. Their ambitions became increasingly ambitious. They announced the development of their own revolutionary cryptocurrency, AfriCoin, which they claimed would surpass Bitcoin. This was followed by the announcement of the launch of Africa's first crypto bank. Such grandiose statements made a huge impression and repeatedly reinforced confidence in their platform. By 2001, their paper empire was valued by the press at $3.6 billion. But the founders of the pyramid scheme understood perfectly well that such a scheme could not last forever. The time had come to prepare an exit scam, a well-thought-out escape plan. The main problem was to find a way to withdraw nearly $4 billion in Bitcoin, distributed across thousands of customer addresses, and disappear without a trace. The brothers took action a few weeks before the announced collapse, acting with exceptional precision. The plan was implemented in several stages. Simultaneous withdrawal of money from all accounts would have caused inevitable panic. Therefore, the brothers secretly began the process of consolidating funds at night. They made small, inconspicuous transactions, transferring money from thousands of customer deposit addresses to several large, cold wallets, hardware devices such as Ledger or Trezor, to which only they had access. To investors, this looked like a standard technical operation of the platform, but by early April, the main funds were concentrated in 5 or 6 anonymous addresses. After that, the money laundering phase began. They needed absolute anonymity on the Bitcoin network. They began to gradually withdraw large amounts of assets using so-called Bitcoin mixers or tumblers, such as the infamous Tornado Cash. Such shadow services function as a huge blender for cryptocurrency. They pass dirty coins through many different wallets, mixing them with other users' transactions in a common pot to completely hide the traces of their origin. They broke billions into hundreds of small transactions and ran them through mixers multiple times. Next, the laundered but still traceable bitcoins were converted into Monero, one of the most anonymous cryptocurrencies in existence today. Unlike Bitcoin, where transactions can be tracked, this is virtually impossible on the Monero network thanks to the use of ring signatures technology. This is what made Monero the perfect tool for making billions disappear without a trace. After conversion to Monero, all traces were lost. They needed to do more than just shut down the platform. That wasn't enough. Investors would immediately demand the return of their investments, and the authorities would launch an international investigation. To avoid responsibility, they came up with a brilliant cover-up. They staged a large-scale hacker attack. For greater credibility, they could even leave fake digital traces leading to some North Korean hacker group. All that remained was to choose the right moment, because everything was ready. April 13th, 2021 was D-Day. The operation was probably initiated in the middle of the night at around 3 a.m. Johannesburg time to give the brothers the maximum time advantage. As usual, in the morning, Africrypt customers logged into the platform to check their rapidly growing balances. However, this time, they were in for an unpleasant surprise. Withdrawals were unavailable. At first, users thought it was a technical glitch, but their concern quickly turned into panic, which spread through closed chats on Telegram and WhatsApp. Questions began to appear in the chats. Can anyone withdraw money? I have an error. Have we been cheated? A few hours later, when the situation reached a critical point, an official statement was released. Customers were sent letters with fake condolences and an urgent request not to contact law enforcement agencies. We have been victims of a sophisticated and organized hack, the brothers said. Our security services are negotiating with the hacker group. Any intervention by the authorities or legal action could jeopardize the return of your funds. We ask you to remain calm. It was a brilliant move to get those precious watches. While stunned investors tried to call customer service, which was no longer answering, and the website returned a 404-page not found error, the Kajee brothers disappeared without a trace. By the time the defrauded investors realized the gravity of what had happened, the money had already been withdrawn, laundered, converted to Monero, and hidden in anonymous networks. The founders, meanwhile, were safe. The robbery was complete. Billions were gone. The second stage began, the chase. The most outraged investors were the first to raise the alarm. They wasted no time and went in person to Africrypt's headquarters in Johannesburg. However, instead of the gleaming skyscraper and high-tech financial center they had expected, customers saw only a modest, inconspicuous residential building in a quiet suburb. No servers, no security, no evidence of a multi-billion-dollar company. The gap between perception and reality was shocking. The defrauded investors immediately contacted the police, but South African investigators, assessing the scale of what had happened, faced two serious difficulties. First, in South Africa in 2021, cryptocurrency did not have a clear legal basis. It was not recognized as money or a financial asset. This left the police at an impasse. How to classify such a crime? Was it theft, fraud, or a violation of securities law? The Kajee brothers' lawyers, who continued their work, argued that it was a software glitch rather than an intentional crime. But a new problem arose: the technical illiteracy of law enforcement agencies. The police did not know how to track the blockchain. They turned to independent analytics firms, such as Chainalysis, for help. Analysts were able to trace the initial transfers to Bitcoin mixers, but the trail was lost there. One expert noted, "It's like trying to track a specific drop of water that has spilled into the ocean." And here's another major dead end. Official passport and aviation control systems showed no evidence that Amir and Rais Kajee had ever left the country. No plane tickets, no border crossing stamps, no signs of travel. They seemed to have disappeared without a trace. While interviewing former Africrypt employees, investigators stumbled upon another disturbing detail that pointed to the brothers' extreme paranoia. A week before the alleged hacker attack, The accounts of all key employees, including the chief financial officer, were unexpectedly and without prior notice disabled. The managers initially thought it was a temporary glitch or a security system update. One of them even admitted that he spent several hours trying to recover his password, thinking he had simply forgotten it. In reality, they had simply been locked out of the system. Under the pretext of security measures, the Kajee brothers isolated anyone who could have been an obstacle or even a witness to the consolidation of power. Only the two of them retained full administrative control over the platform. This clearly showed that the escape had been planned and carried out in advance with cold calculation. However, the main question remained unanswered. How did they manage to leave the country without leaving a single trace, either digital or physical? The incident quickly took on international proportions and made headlines in leading global news outlets. South Africa's reputation as a hub for the fintech industry was seriously threatened. Soon, the international organization Interpol joined the investigation and immediately added the brothers to its red list, an international list of wanted persons. When global agencies got involved, the mystery of their disappearance was solved. The answer was simple, but at the same time, discouraging. A few months before carrying out the scam, the Kajee brothers, anticipating its outcome, secretly obtained citizenship of Vanuatu, a small island nation in the Pacific Ocean. This was the core of their plan. Vanuatu is known for its passports for investment program. Citizenship costs about $130,000 and lack of strict financial controls. But most importantly, Vanuatu does not extradite its citizens. In addition, a Vanuatu passport gave them visa-free access to more than 130 countries around the world, including the United Kingdom. And they simply left using these new passports, which South Africa had no idea about. Investigators speculated that the brothers might have fled to Dubai, a city known for its favorable treatment of crypto capital, or to Tanzania, but neither of these theories was confirmed. The brothers seemed impossible to catch. But one of them made a fatal mistake. The events moved to Zurich, Switzerland, the global heart of private banking capital. In August 2021, 4 months after the scam, local investigators, apparently receiving information from an aggrieved investor, make an unexpected discovery. In one of Zurich's most secure bank vaults, they find a rented safe deposit box. Inside is a Ledger hardware crypto wallet. This flash drive-like device can securely store part of the stolen billions offline. The police faced a difficult task. The wallet remained locked without a private key, PIN code, and any interference threatened to destroy the data. However, investigators were confident that the owner would return for his valuables sooner or later. All they could do was wait. For several months, they kept the safe deposit box under constant covert surveillance. Finally, their patience was rewarded. On November 9, 2021, Amir Kajee, the younger of the brothers, confident in his immunity, calmly entered the bank. The moment he tried to open the safe deposit box, he was immediately arrested. The chase seemed to be over. The younger brother had been caught, and the billions were to be returned. Justice was to prevail. However, instead of a cold prison cell, Amir Kajee was placed under constant surveillance in a luxurious 5-star hotel where one night cost about $1,000. Perhaps his lawyers argued that harsh prison conditions were not appropriate for such a young genius and could irreparably damage his psyche. While Swiss investigators were slowly conducting their investigation, a mysterious investor hiding behind the offshore company Pentagon Project Management approached the victims. He offered them a humiliating deal, a paltry $5 million in compensation for completely dropping all claims against the brothers. It was simply insulting. $5 million for $4 billion stolen. Amir Kajee spent 6 months in this luxurious hotel, living in what could be called preliminary detention. The trial did not concern his guilt, but focused on legal nuances. In the end, he was released on bail of 300,000 Swiss francs, equivalent to $375,000, a paltry sum compared to what he had stolen, a sum he may still have had in his possession. As part of his release, he had to surrender his passport and was prohibited from leaving Switzerland. In August 2023, almost 2 years later, something incredible happened. Amir Kajee's passport was returned to him without explanation and for unknown reasons. There were no press releases or public hearings. Everything happened quietly. On the same day, he presumably left Switzerland immediately. The system caught him and unexpectedly let him go. What happened to Amir's older brother, Rais, who was never caught, remains a mystery. In 2024, the case reached its shameful peak and simultaneously stalled. The final blow for all those affected was an official statement published by the South African Financial Services Conduct Authority, FSCA. The document pointed out that since the Africrypt platform had never been officially registered as a financial organization but operated as a technology company, the authorities had no legal grounds to initiate an investigation. This created a legal situation reminiscent of a Kafkaesque impasse. The lack of status meant there was no crime. As a result, there were no charges, no trials, and no grounds for compensation. At the same time, another crypto fraudster, Faruk Fatih Oza, a Turkish native and founder of the Todex exchange, was arrested after managing to steal $2 billion. A Turkish court handed down a harsh sentence, 11,196 years in prison. The Kajee brothers remained free. Their loot, 69,000 bitcoins, now valued at more than $7.5 billion, was gone forever. The brothers' plan had worked perfectly. The perfect crime consisted not only of the theft itself, but also of the fact that the corrupt, sluggish, and helpless global financial system, vulnerable due to loopholes and bureaucracy, allowed them to escape punishment. It condemned the victims to silently watch as the fraudsters spent their money.